Welcome, all you MCU fans, to the latest episode of True Believers here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We got something special in store for you. We hope you've gotten your subpoenas taken care of, your evidence requests in, and we hope you can control your rage, because nobody likes to see you turn into a big green rage monster in front of the jury. It doesn't look good, and it doesn't really help your case. We are here to talk about, of course, the newest show to the MCU universe, and that is She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. But you know what? I might be in the first chair to talk about this show, but I need a good second, and I can't think of anybody. He's more of a 1A to my 1 for this podcast anyway, because he's just as important. He's the co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, my brother from another mother, and I don't think he's approached any big, large green women at a bar recently, but I'm going to double check with him. Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Well, according to Tony Stark, helps if you got a big bag of weed to hold on to your rage. I don't need that, but I do have my spandex underwear just in case, but I did have to take off my brand new shoes because they're really nice.
Tatiana. Sorry, that's probably going to happen a few times in this episode. People, forgive me.
Should we take a Tatiana moment and just?
I might need several before this season is over with. For those of you who might not know, I am a huge Tatiana Maslany fan. I've been following her since Orphan Black, and I might have a little bit of crush there, Kevin. I'm just saying.
A little bit of crush, yeah. I don't blame you.
You might even understand a little bit more after you've watched this first episode of She-Hulk.
Yeah, totally.
So, yes, and spandex is your best friend, no matter what anybody else tells you. Spandex, especially when you're a Hulk, it is your best friend. But we are here on True Believers, and of course, there's a lot of good things going on. It's an exciting time for the MCU. The last episode we had, Kevin, we kind of overfilled our brains with MCU goodness. Are you cleared out? I got to make sure you become one with yourself after all.
Yes, I've forgotten everything that we did on that show, so we're good.
That's probably good for your sanity. And of course, we got a lot of great things going on with the MCU, and you can find out all about them at our True Believers Fandom Podcast Network group on Facebook. We keep you updated with all the goings on at the MCU. We've got She-Hulk out now. I Am Groot is out. We've got D23 right around the corner. We expect another big go around of Marvel announcements then, which we'll be talking about. But you know what, guys? I'm excited. We got a lot to do. So let's kick things off, though. Before we talk She-Hulk, I want to bring up something real quick. Kevin, before we did this episode, I had about 20 minutes to kill. So I went on Disney Plus and I watched the 4-episode shorts of I Am Groot.
Now, 4 only? There's only 4?
It's either, I believe it's 4, may have been 5. They fly by. They're really short. None of them are over 5 minutes, but they're cute. They're fun. It's obviously Baby Groot right after the events of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 in between there. I just got to say, Kevin, it's beautifully animated, and some of them are very cute, and some of them I had a couple of good laugh out loud moments. If you just need still something to clear your palate, enjoy, check out I Am Groot on Disney Plus. I think it's fun. It's not unnecessary. I need to watch this to understand what's going on in the MCU, but it's fun. If you have kids, I think it's a much watch for the kids.
Right, of course. Good to know. I had forgotten those had dropped, so thanks for the reminder.
So, but they were good fun. So I just wanted to throw that out. But Kevin, you know what? Get the gavel out, because court is now in session. It is time to talk She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, which means
lawyer show.
There you go. Which means also too, we need to bleed off a little gamma radiation before we get started. So let me take care of that for everybody. I promise it wasn't a lethal dose, Kevin. Now, sir, if you would be so kind, would you care to go into the plot description?
Of course.
Our phases off.
This is She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Episode 1, A Normal Amount of Rage. Episode aired August 18th, 2022. During a road trip, lawyer Jennifer Walters and her cousin Bruce Banner are interrupted, or shall I say, intercepted by a Sakaran spaceship and crash their car. Walters, while attempting to get Banner to safety, is contaminated by his blood, causing her to transform into a Hulk. Afterwards, Walters is taken to Banner's secret laboratory in Mexico, where he explains her special genetic condition and probably makes up some cocktails, and offers to help her control her powers. Though she is able to effortlessly handle Banner's training regime, Walters expresses displeasure over the idea of becoming a superhero and abandoning her previous life. She attempts to leave, but is stopped by Banner, and the two get into a fight. Banner reluctantly accepts Walters' wish to return to her normal life and bids her farewell. A few months later, Walters attends a court case, but is interrupted by Titania. Am I saying that right, Kyle?
Titana,
thank you. A super-powered social media influencer. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at that because I'm just thinking of all the TikToks.
Yeah,
and how that's a social media influencer. That's a thing now. Who violently burst into the courtroom. Walter transforms and easily defeats Titania.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a post-credit scene where the question is finally answered, because she, in that beginning of that road trip, she begins to ask the question that many fans have. Did, at the end of Endgame, in the timeline, did Steve Rogers appear to everyone that he died? Because that's what everyone was told, even though we know that that's not what happened. Did he die a virgin? And post-credit scene, very funny. They're drinking. Not drunk as she pretends. She gets it out of Bruce that he lost his virginity in the 1943 ASO tour. And she goes, Captain America!
And cuts, yes. Now, Kevin, I just want to bring this up because let's go back to Captain America, the First Avenger, just real quick.
Yeah.
If he's already flirting with Haley Atwell at that point, but Natalie Dormer's putting the moves on him at that point too.
Oh man, he would have gotten some right there if it wasn't for Captain. Yes, her
Agent Carter.
If it wasn't for Agent Carter, Natalie Dormer would have represented every single one of those women she was referring to, and there would have been.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, so this has been a thing. People have wondered, like, wait a minute, because it's kind of teased, when what is it? The truck scene with Natasha. She's like, was that the first time you've kissed in a long time? Kind of thing. And that brings up the question, like, did he actually, according to everyone at that time, die a virgin? Of course, we know he actually went back in time and gave it plenty to Peggy Carter. But anyway, that was very, very funny.
Yes.
Kyle, your first reactions to the episode?
This was, first of all, I got to make it clear, I have been very excited for this series since they announced it, especially when they announced how they were going to handle this series with her breaking the fourth wall, using some of the classic John Byrne comics ideas that they were going to do. I've been excited about this. Then they announced Tatiana Maslany was going to play the lead role, and I was just, that's it. Doesn't matter. It can be good, bad. I'm in because I love Tatiana. And yes, there will be a marriage proposal, I'm sure, at some point before this podcast is over. But it was phenomenal. It was everything I needed from an MCU show right now. It wasn't this heavy thing. It was fun. It had some ties to the MCU, but it was still its own. It still felt like its own thing as well. It didn't feel like, okay, we're burdening you down with the ties to the MCU. Everything they did complemented each other. And I found it thoroughly enjoyable. I wish it would have been a little longer, but I think it's a great introduction episode to get to know She-Hulk as we go into the rest of the season now, seeing her in her current life, doing basically a flashback episode to show us what happened, to set up what's going to be happening the rest of the way in the episode. And I think it was phenomenal. I had a great time with this.
I don't know the character at all. I've heard of the character, and you've teased me and helped me a little bit because I'm the non-comic book reader. I'm just diving into the MCU, which stands for Marvel Cinematic Universe, not Marvel comic universe. See what I did there? See what I did there? See what I did there? Yeah.
Very well.
Anyway,
Very well.
So I went into this fresh only from what you've told me and what you thought you were going to expect from it. And then, of course, what the trailers told me. And I was ready for something fun. I was ready for something that may answer the question this season. What happens when our superheroes get into some legal trouble? Because, they got to be accountable for things. I mean, we saw the serious side of accountability in Captain America Civil War with the Sokovia Accords, but there's got to be more to it. And the fact that we have a Hulk character that can actually not become two people, but control her abilities somewhat and try to live this life. And, from what I understand from the trailers that I've seen, enter this new world of legal eagles. I don't know, legal group, superpower law, whatever you want to call it. Dun, dun. I love it. I think it's great. And Tatiana Maslany was fantastic. She was funny. She was charming. Bruce Banner just was great in this as well. I love seeing Bruce be Bruce a little bit. And Mark Ruffalo is awesome. I think Mark has just been a wonderful addition to the MCU because not only is he a great actor, he just brings a certain really kind of cool thing to Bruce. And now that he does the Smart Hulk thing as well, it's fun to watch him in Smart Hulk form and reference that as well and just have these moments. And I think that's really, really cool because that's one of the things I really loved about Endgame was you saw that version firsthand. And I didn't have high expectations for this first episode, but man, I was pleasantly surprised, thoroughly enjoyable. Yes, we would love longer episodes, but we get 9, if I remember correctly, as that's what's been done. So I'm fine with that. If they're 30 plus another 10 minutes and credits. And the fact that they make a lot of references to the MCU in this and answer some questions was another fun thing about this, Kyle, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
First of all, Kevin, what if I told you about talking about Smug Hulk?
Oh gosh, yeah, so funny.
No, again, for the first episode, I had an absolutely great time with this, and if this is the direction they're going to go, I'm fine with this. I know it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but Kevin, that's I think one of the great things that has, and I brought this up before, that Disney has done with the MCU shows that they've done, and actually, Mark Ruffalo brought this point up too. The diversity of the type of shows and movies that the MCU has at their fingertips. And I think the shows that they've done have been very representative of it because none of these shows really have felt alike. They've all had their own uniqueness to them and their own difference. And She-Hulk is continuing that.
That's an excellent point, Kyle. Excellent point. Yeah. Yeah. And it was nice to watch an MCU show that wasn't dark and depressing and death all around you. It was nice that you had Hulk Banner explain to Jennifer that there are consequences of putting a target on your back when you are who you are. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the show starts off, people that have power, what kind of responsibilities are they, should they actually have, and that was questioned from the beginning. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. But yeah, and we hear about the, regarding other shows, it's not for every show, it's not for everyone, but the cultural diversity that you just brought up, Kyle, we talked about that with Ms. Marvel. We talked about that with Moon Knight, and the people they have involved with those shows, representing the culture is just, it's been amazing. And now we got lawyers representing their culture.
That's one way to put it. So we didn't get we got a little taste of the cast. Obviously, most of this episode was Mark Ruffalo, and really for I think a lot of people, maybe a true introduction to Tatiana Maslany, who maybe just didn't catch on to Orphan Black, or because that's been a few years ago now, and
the lady won an Emmy for that show, right, Kyle?
Yeah, she played at least 8 different versions of herself in that show as a being cloned, but each clone being different, and yet you have her in this role, and it's totally different than anything she played on Orphan Black. Now, Kevin, I know over at Union Federation, myself and of course Haley Stoddard are huge Orphan Black fans. Amy Nelson has we pulled into the cult. We've been trying to pull you in, and I know there's just so much out there that you haven't got to it. So I know this is probably more of a thorough introduction to Tatiana for you. So I got to ask, Tatiana. Oh, sorry. What were your
I'm sorry, what was that, Kyle? What'd you do?
Tatiana. Okay, I'm back. What were your impressions of her in this role? Because this is a very complex role in the aspect of she's still Jennifer Walters, but She-Hulk, as She-Hulk, she has even a little bit more chutzpah in her personality.
I get it. And by the way, sorry about that. The show was on and I accidentally hit mute, so sorry about that. You're right. There is something very charming about her when her portrayal of Jennifer, and that we get the fourth wall breaking of looking at the camera. But little things like when they're doing the superhero yoga scene, whatever you want to call that, that was very funny. And also, too, talking with her friend, her colleague, and when the male colleagues kind of like, mansplaining a little bit, I guess. And that's one of the frustrating things about how she has to control her own rage just as being a human before she became Hulk, And, it's just little things like that she carries herself very well. And when her colleague mentions the look on her face, let me get that Jennifer Walters look, and she does that little
savage
thing.
look.
Savage look, yeah. Yeah. And I thought that was nice too, but there's something, she's very attractive, but what's attractive about her though is her mannerisms, little looks that she does when she's saying something, and her smile. I mean, I get it, Kyle. I see why by the end of this episode you might propose marriage to her. I get it.
Yeah. The other aspect about it is she has instant chemistry with Mark Ruffalo, and that
totally.
Even though they say they're cousins, they almost have this brother-sister vibe kind of going off. It's like, oh, well, that was a dick move, or when he pushes her off the cliff and she flips him the middle finger, things like that. I mean, just they had such great chemistry between us, and she's like, you didn't.
Let me actually. That's a good point you brought up. Sorry to interrupt, but the chemistry to me almost came across as a brother-sister vibe. That they're obviously close, and we had no past reference to this anywhere, but because you mentioned their chemistry, you buy it right off the bat. And I love that you don't have to nurture that relationship for more than one episode. It's there and you're in it.
Yeah. And come on, you don't tell me about the Hulk size hangovers after a night at the Hulk bar. Yeah, and I know we'll get a lot more into the other members of the cast as we get a chance to see them develop.
Can I actually bring something up regarding the cast real quick here?
Absolutely.
First of all, Jamila Jamil. She was the friend, the girl. What was it? What's her name?
Jamila Jamil was she was Titania in Titania.
Yes, but the character that she played before with the Dashnell girl, with the three guys in the apartment. What's that called? Wasn't she her best friend in that?
I believe so. I can't think of the name of the show.
All right, I'm just gonna look it up on IMDb real quick. But that's where I thought that most.
The Good Place. Yeah. She was in The Good Place.
Oh, The Good Place. I'm sorry, I was thinking of something else actually. Yeah. Okay, wrong character. Gotcha. Okay, so I've never seen Good Place. Okay, I thought she was something else. But anyway, real quick, who is in 30 seconds? Who is Titania?
Well, this is where it gets interesting because they're taking a totally different approach to this character from the character in the comics. In the comics, the original character was created in the way back original version of Marvel's Secret Wars by Dr. Doom to reinforce the ranks, per se. She was a very skinny, weak woman who was experimented on by Dr. Doom, made into this strong powerhouse. So she's kind of a bully type character. I'm going to be interested to see. They've never really played up the social media star aspect of this character before. So, like I said, this is where, again, they're using the baselines of the comics, but giving things more of its own MCU twist to it.
Okay. By the way, I don't know why I've never heard of this or even thought about it, but the next time I eat Cheetos, it's going to be with chopsticks, dude.
I think that's going to become a thing.
Yeah.
Hashtag Cheeto chopstick.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Her coworkers, are these people that are based on someone in the comics that I should know about?
The Ginger Gonzaga character played by Nikki Ramos has been in She-Hulk as a friend of She-Hulk's for in and out of the comics, but nothing like really major or anything like that. It's just been a lot of. We're not going to start seeing major characters you should know about probably until next episode, as far as their impact coming from comics into the MCU.
I hope they don't feel that they have to turn any friends into superheroes by accident, because I think the humans that stay human are some of the more interesting people. So I did want to bring up something. So I was kind of curious, and I don't know all the details yet. Maybe we'll find out more. But I was curious about this Malia Aria, who is the on-set She-Hulk reference. And this is a very tall girl who is 6. What does it say here? She is 6 something. Let me see her bio here. But she was born in 1990, Daly City, California. And she is 6 feet 5 1/4 inches. And she's played some zombies, I guess, in Gone with the Dead and also in Lucy. But apparently because of her size, maybe she was wearing a suit or something. But I'm assuming because of her size, maybe for eyesight and a sight of line and other things, that she was brought on. And if you go to her IMDb, she's done some modeling as well. But I just want to give her a shout out because that must have been a cool job. Malia Aria. So make sure,
because Tatiana's tiny. I'm not gonna lie.
Exactly. Yeah, and I guess she's been a model, and she has a little bit of acting skill. She was a prison inmate in Orange is the New Black, and she's done some short films and stuff like that. But she plays a zombie in an upcoming film called Gone with the Dead. So I see what they did there. Cool.
So Kevin, it's that time. I know you like to visit our friends from Den of Geek, and they've had some interest. Kristen Howard had some interesting things to say about She-Hulk.
Yeah, I love Kristen Howard. She's done some great stuff. We've talked about her on other shows that we've done as well. And she did an article that came out August 18th, said She-Hulk Attorney at Law review. Marvel Studios navigates the tricky landscape of a half-hour live-action comedy series featuring CGI characters in She-Hulk Attorney at Law with mixed results. Now, there's 2 topics I want to discuss that she brings up. I'm not going to read the whole article because I want other people to talk about it. But I did want to say that Kristen wasn't the biggest fan of this thus far. She was about middle of the road with it. There were things she liked, and of course, there's things that she didn't like. She ended up giving it 2.5 stars out of 5. Kyle, yes.
I was saying about this because I told you I didn't really want to bring this up in the show but I think it's important we bring this up because not only does it with Den of Geek, another podcast we listen to that we really love, the Midnight Boys on the Ringer, and several other media sources, got to see the first 4 episodes of She-Hulk. And a lot of their reviews are basing it off of, instead of episode by episode getting it, they've got a more fleshed out first 4 episodes on this. And Kevin, we talked about this a little bit off mic. I don't know if that's necessarily a fair thing when you're trying to give review, because no matter what your influence, you're influenced by seeing that many episodes, and you can't you don't give a fair assessment.
We want to know what you think about what we just saw, not what you're holding back and what you can't say because you know what's coming up. And I think that does skew someone's opinion. And I want to learn from your review if you're surprised about it in that first episode, and you knowing what's going to happen in the next 3 episodes kind of makes me take what you're saying not only as possibly spoilerific, but also skewed. And I don't know if I like that in my reviews, knowing and going into that.
Yeah, and that's just a personal thing I wanted to bring up because I'm with you. I would rather much get your instant reaction to this episode and focus on what we've seen, because I feel like when you're reviewing that, when you've seen something that somebody else nobody else has seen, it's just been a media thing. It's not like when we talk about a movie, if you haven't got a chance to go to the theater yet, it's available there to you. You can go watch it.
Yeah.
This stuff isn't available to us.
And just go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
I was just gonna say, like I said, I think you whether no matter how good of a writer you are, you're writing with a sense of spoiler in your review.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna creep in.
You referenced the Ringerverse and the Midnight Boys, who are fun to listen to, and they usually do the instant reactions of stuff that drops because they watch the stuff late at night. But they got into a little bit of controversy earlier this year with some of the episodes. I don't know if it was Peacemaker or what it was exactly, but they had mentioned that they got to see some episodes ahead of time before drop, and a lot of fans did not like that, and it was brought up. So if you're not a fan of that, trust me, you're not alone. But there is a couple of topics in Kristen Howard's interview that I did want to bring up, not interview, excuse me, article that I did want to bring up. And the one thing is the MCU Easter Eggs discussion here. There are plenty of MCU connections in this first episode of She-Hulk, Kristen goes on to say. Attorney at law, and most of them are weaved in via Bruce, filling in some Phase 3 gaps for us. We find out that the Stark-built hideout in Mexico was where he worked on integrating Hulk and Banner to create Smart Hulk during the blip. And he and Tony used it to sit around there drinking while Tony complained about Steve Rogers. Bruce references his origin story as Edward Norton and several moments in the Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron while discussing how he was historically able to transition from Banner to the Hulk and back again. He also mentions his fully hulked out 2-year stretch on Sakaar, through we get no closer to finding out the denizens of the Grandmaster Stomping Ground want him this time. We find out that Steve Rogers did not die a virgin. Hard to know what to say about that one. So in the words of Bro and Bot King Zack Snyder, let's just go with canon. So Kyle, I did want to bring up this Sakarian thing here. Sakaran, right? I didn't know what that was at first. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I had to do a little outside research. So I like the fact that we don't have to know that right now. And that's a thing they decide to just leave hanging there. We might get maybe reference to that later, and that's fine. If we don't get any more Sakarian information of why they're looking for Banner again, whether it's a revenge thing or we need your help thing, I'm fine with not getting that in this series. What say you?
I say Marvel is very sneaky because they're setting up something that's been rumored for a while to be announced possibly at D23, and that is World War Hulk, a Disney Plus series.
Okay.
And
is this the thing that takes place after the Planet Hulk comic series that Ragnarok was based on? Okay.
Now, obviously, they will probably not go the full story of World War Hulk as it was because the Sakaar thing and Planet Hulk was so twisted. But I could see where they would take elements of maybe that we don't know about yet about Hulk's time on Sakaar and incorporate that into World War Hulk. And maybe the Sakaars are coming back to get their grand champion, and that leads to World War events in World War Hulk. So this is a very sneaky thing. And if we get World War Hulk announced at D23, I'm going to give Kevin Feige and the guys at Marvel all the kudos for pulling this little sneaky thing off.
That brings up something that we discussed before we started this, Kyle, is why people have asked why there hasn't been a Hulk film in the Disney age. And there was a really good article, a podcast that you turned me on to called The Town, where there's a Hollywood insider guy that discusses that topic. And he talks about the weird universal rights that they have, and the reason why Disney will not do a Hulk film until those rights lapse, because then they would have to share profits and stuff like that with them. But that doesn't stop them from doing a TV show.
Correct.
And the fact that the reason why the Hulk's been able to be allowed to be in Avenger films is because the rights specifically say you can have Hulk in a movie, but he can't be the lead star. He has to have a bunch of co-stars with him. And so that's what they've done. So that's why we might get the TV show. Right, Kyle?
Yeah. And Kevin, I'm curious because I haven't listened to that podcast yet, and I just got to throw this out real quick. one of the most bizarre things going here in Florida is Universal Studios Islands of Adventure, the Marvel Island, because it's stuck in the 90s. They can't, because Disney can't do anything where Universal has the rights for in the park. So they can't in here in Florida put like Spider-Man and Captain America, because if those characters appear in Universal Studios, and obviously Hulk is a big thing. Part of that Universal thing too was Namor, who's going to be fine. His rights expired a year ago, and hence why now he's going to appear in Wakanda forever. So hopefully in 2024, when Hulk is done, we'll finally get a Hulk movie. But now, and Ruffalo is very much on board to doing a miniseries and doing more Hulk things. So if we, like I said, Kevin Feige sneaky. If we get an announcement of World War Hulk at D23, I'd give it, like I said, he gets all the props for me.
If you're curious about listening to that podcast, The Town, the title of it's the newest episode that dropped Thursday, the 19th, called The Wackiest CEO in Entertainment. And he does a podcast discussing the CEO of AMC and the wacky things that he's done to run that company. But I believe that was on that episode. Okay. So
yeah,
anyway,
and the host of The Town is Matthew Bellany.
Yes, thank you, Matthew Bellany. Yes, and it's a short podcast, like 30 minutes. Thanks for turning me on to that, Kyle. It's fascinating insight. And just so you know, a couple things they've discussed is should Disney sell ESPN, and the lawsuit striking fear into Fox News, plus Lord of the Rings predictions. And they also did discuss the Disney Plus and streaming price hikes. So make sure you check that out. So back to the article here, Kyle. There was a lot of Easter eggs going in here. Was there some that surprised you outside of finding out that Captain America was not a virgin?
You know, who would have thought the Hulk was so sentimental? He has an Iron Man. Well, he has one of the Iron Man helmets built into his bar. You've got the BB and Tony Stark's initials carved in to the bar as well.
Yeah,
and just how it's really what I really liked about it. It was not so much the Easter eggs, but you see just how close that Tony and Bruce relationship actually was. And we always kind of got that
inclination. We needed to see more of that. That was some of my favorite moments in the Avenger films, when those two were talking or at odds.
Yeah, or even, the end of Iron Man 3, when we find out Tony had been confessing his voiceover throughout the film. It was him basically confessing to Bruce, and Bruce is like, I'm not that kind of doctor.
I have a question about that mask later. I think it's in trivia. We'll bring that up then. So, okay. What else was there? Okay. The whole thing about Smart Hulk, where he wasn't given the nickname. I thought that was kind of funny.
See, now what's funny, Kevin, is in the comics, well, where a lot of comic fans call that particular type of version of the Hulk, it's actually Professor Hulk.
Professor Hulk. Okay. That makes I like that better. That's good. Yeah. Okay, so I want to bring up a topic, and I want to come to I want to say something to the fans, and I want to come to an understanding with you, Kyle, going forward. It's kind of a big thing. If you don't agree with it, that's fine, but I want to propose something to you. But let me go over what she says in the article here. CGI discussion. As it's becoming a tradition with these Marvel MCU shows, the end credits shine brightly yet again, with the art giving us some good-humored context for Jen's new life as She-Hulk. They end everything on an upbeat note, but the well-documented chatter about the show's CGI quality won't be fully put to rest after the first episode. It's mostly fine, I would say, but there are a couple of moments where she does look a little bit dodgy. The overworked VFX artists on She-Hulk Attorney at Law likely did their best, and She-Hulk CGI rarely strays into Polar Express territory. Ouch. Though I regret to inform you that in some of the later episodes I watched it was definitely leaning more that way. What I do find annoying is how detailed the CGI on Smart Hulk looks in comparison. There are probably legitimate reasons for this being the case. The VFX team may have already had access to some established layers from Avengers Endgame. Who knows? But it kind of works of, well, Hulk's more important. And going back to my earlier gripe with some of the heavy-handedness in the writing here, I think giving the VFX creators the time they need to fully realize She-Hulk visually opposite Hulk should have been a pretty powerful statement on its own.
So I know you I have many thoughts on this because this has been a very hot topic in Hollywood right now. But I know you have some things you want to say, so the floor is yours. But this is a very hot topic right now, so I'm glad we're bringing this up.
Okay, my challenge to you listeners and you viewers, and this is something I've had to come to peace with myself. Kyle, one of my biggest pet peeves of all time in movie fandom, as you know, is when movies film in low light, battle scenes and acting scenes take place with rain, so they can kind of chintz on the CG. However, movies like the Transformer movies had a lot of good CG in daylight. I give them credit for that. Kyle?
Godzilla Kong.
Yes, Godzilla Kong was great. However, with the Disney Plus TV series, and I've even heard in the movies recently, a lot of complaint about CG, especially animated stuff, or live action stuff not looking like the animated stuff. Come on, Inquisitor. Could you just freaking enjoy the story and the acting? Because this is where the true heart of the Disney Plus TV series and the new movies are trying to shine. Yes, they have dropped the ball several times when it comes to storytelling or maybe some editing issues or, very glaring story stuff. But this is getting this pet peeve of the CG wasn't quite right and I noticed it and it bugged me, blah, blah, blah. Let's start looking past that. Yes, you can forgive it. I don't believe you when you say, I can't forgive this. She-Hulk, oh man, remember all the complaint when we first saw the first thing and apparently they had to go back and fix it because we bitched so hard? Guys, girls, stop complaining about CG issues. If you're going to do that to me, I'm going to tune you out going forward. Pay attention to the story. The reason why I say that, as much as I love action scenes, especially with the MCU, I'll be honest, there's times they go on too long, and I kind of wish that they would end sooner. My favorite moments, and I've said this before to Kyle, he's tired of hearing it, is the moments when you get to see them talking, discussing, arguing, not necessarily when they're fighting. These are the moments that I like. So, going forward from here on now, She-Hulk, I want to put a no bitching about CG rule, law in place here on the Fandom Podcast Network going forward. Now, Kyle, you're a little more indifferent about, you feel a little more differently about this from time to time. I get it. And I've held my tongue on things because I've gotten to the point to where I can watch old movies from the 70s, the 80s, the 60s, the 50s, and I look at how dated those special effects are. But I look past that now because I'm noticing things about the acting and the characters. Things that I should have known because I shouldn't have been bitching about something in the way that it should have looked. Kyle, that's how I feel.
Well, Kevin, I only have one response to this.
If you're listening to this, that was a nuclear bomb explosion.
Yeah, I had to borrow from Culture Class. We have a section there. Bomb it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. It's when we have a big hot take. That's our bombing it from orbit. And Kevin, that was a great hot take. So I want to hit on this because I'm a little bit more the techie guy and stuff. So I look for certain things with CG, but it's a very interesting topic in Hollywood right now because there is a problem, and it's not the visual effects house's fault, but you add in COVID and you add in the amount of these type of shows and movies, these heavy CG movies, these science fiction films, these fantasy films, these VFX houses are overworked, and Marvel is just cranking these things out like they're Pez dispenser with these shows, and they're not getting a break. They're short-staffed, and they're trying to meet all these deadlines, and because of that, the CG work is maybe not up to the par they would like to do. I mean, and I'll give you an example. This is Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. There's a couple of scenes in there where, yes, there's some pretty glaring bad CGI sections. I think just, Kevin, we are a victim of our own success of having all this amazing thing and the cost it is to,
because we have seen really good CGI,
right.
whether, it's, I like Tarkin in Rogue One,
Yeah,
so.
but my point is this, is that because we have such a higher demand for films that have CGI, you add in COVID where they have to make concessions, and they tried to make up for those concessions. It was CGI. These VFX houses they don't have the bandwidth to handle this workload. And it's not like there's a ton of quality VFX houses out there. There's good ones out there, but there's not an ILM out there.
I understand. I get it. Yeah.
So, but I also think too, She-Hulk is a very good example. Look how everybody reacted to the CGI of She-Hulk when the first trailer dropped, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, that looks so terrible." And I'm like, they're still working on it. They just threw something out there so we could get an idea of what the show's about. It's infinitely better now than it was then. So I think people are being a little too hard on the CGI front, and I think it's not the only. It's just, if one bad CGI shot ruins a movie for you, you got a problem.
Yeah, if you say that the biggest thing I'm so tired of hearing was the CGI on this scene took me out of it. The CGI on this character took me out of the movie, blah, blah, blah. Come on. You can put yourself past that and enjoy what their story that they're trying to tell, because that's what's important. The story and the character development. That is the most important part. I'm tired of those stupid excuses. Just stop.
And okay, I'm gonna throw Kristen Howard under the bus here a little bit, because very frustrated. She answered her own question in this article, Kevin, when she talks about why the Hulk seems more important, because they have been building the Hulk models for over a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
They're easier accessible. They're not as expensive because they're already there.
Right.
With She-Hulk, they had to budget in creating a She-Hulk model.
Yeah.
For this from scratch. So guess what? Yeah, Bruce Banner's going to look better because there's 10 years worth of CGI models that they can pull from right then and there on the spot.
Let me tell you something right now. There's a part of me that if you took the Hulk character and the She-Hulk character and just made them sock puppets with the dialogue that they had, that would have been entertaining. And that would have been no CG work.
Yeah.
Whatever, stick figures, whatever. The dialogue and the story and the character development in this episode alone was fantastic. And that's what you need to pay attention to. Stop bitching about CGI. You're losing me if you keep doing it.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this. If the CGI is noticeably bad throughout a project, that's one thing. If you have a brief 30-second thing here or something there, let it go. Understand what's going on right now. Let's give those hardworking people at these VFX houses a little break, because they're busting their asses right now.
Yeah, they are.
And they're trying to do a lot. And if you really want to see how hard it is to do, go watch the amazing documentary on ILM that's on Disney Plus right now. But see it before they had all this stuff. Then come back and talk to me. But yeah.
So Kyle, can we put a policy that let's not complain? Let's lead by example, and let's let us, if we have an issue, which I hope we don't, but let's talk about something that's more important.
I think the only time it's worth bringing up is if it's blatantly obvious. Like, this is like, oh my God, the whole episode, and it really took me
That's
out.
fair, but I'm not looking forward. I don't think, meaning I'm not expecting that to happen. And if it happens, I'm not going to let it ruin the rest of the episode for me.
Right. No, I agree. I'm just saying if it's blatantly obvious, but I don't expect that from She-Hulk, any Marvel project, to be where they might have a little band moment crease here or there, but I expect it to be pretty quality throughout there. But you know what, Kevin, we're going to take a quick little break here because we're running a little long here. We had some heated discussions. We're going to take a quick little break, come back, talk a little trivia for She-Hulk. So here is what is happening on the Fandom Podcast Network.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville Show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
Okay, Kevin, you dug into the Mighty Marvel MCU information book, shall we say, and you found some trivia for She-Hulk. What do you got for us?
I was just watching the credits to this episode again. It was good to see our friend Louis D'Esposito. I keep saying his last name wrong. Saying hi to him, so that was kind of cool.
No more mid-podcast video calls?
No, not from Louis. But I'm sure he wants us to watch this episode more than once, and I've done.
Oh, there will be many watchings.
Okay, so I got some trivia here for you guys. So it's the first time Dr. Bruce Banner, the Hulk, is seen in human form since Thor Ragnarok 2017, as he was able to develop a prototype bracelet to keep himself in his human form as opposed to staying in the form of the Smart Hulk, revealed in Avengers Endgame 2019. After Bruce and Jennifer's car crash, the prototype is destroyed and Bruce returns to his Smart Hulk form.
Now, Kevin, wait a minute. We did see Bruce, though, in human form at the end of Shang-Chi, and that's stinger for that.
Okay, so he had his arm in a sling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, he did in the beginning of the episode as too.
So,
correct?
Are we going to have this discussion now or later? Because
we'll have it a little later. I just wanted that
okay.
point was sticking out, but
okay, because I wanted to have the timeline schedule here, and I wanted to try to hash that out.
Okay, I just wanted to make. It popped in my head as you were reading it. So,
all right, we will hit that later. Okay.
Yeah.
When Jennifer Walters walks into the bar after her first quote Hulk out, there's a QR code in a poster on the wall, which leads to a free digital She-Hulk comic book. I think Moon Knight did that too, if I remember correctly. In a rare TV nod to reality, the jury box is shown to contain 14 jurors, 12 members, and 2 alternates, as often happens in real life. A scraped up head of an Iron Legion suit from Iron Man 3, 2013, can be seen among the items on display at Bruce's residence. I'm going to assume that's where Tony's like, hey, bro, can I keep this here? The wife, Pepper, she won't let me keep it at the house.
or it's probably from one of the remnants of all the armor suits he blew up at the end of Iron Man 3.
That's what I'm saying. He wanted to keep some stuff because it's sentimental, and when what was it, the robotic one that really kind of scared her while they were in bed together. Yeah. I'm sure she's like, nah, get rid of him. So after Jennifer finishes practicing her closing statement in the opening scene, Nikki tells her that she just needs to top it off with a savage Jen Walters look. When the character was first introduced in the comics in 1980, she was referred to as the Savage She-Hulk. You remember that, Kyle?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
All right, cool. During the bar scene, Bruce mentions that he and Jen can't get drunk because of their enhanced metabolism. This is exactly what Steve Rogers said to Peggy Carter in Captain America: The First Avengers in 2011.
Can I bring up a point about that real quick,
Yeah.
Kevin? Well, we see Jen having the Hulk headache the next day. I don't think Steve Rogers had the hangover headaches because he never fell asleep and reverted back to human like Jen does.
It's true. Yeah. Well,
So,
a little different blood makeup there, I guess, or
Yeah.
serum makeup, as you want to say it. So this is interesting. A little production information here, and I thought this was a smart thing to do. And the way that they express, way that she's talking to the camera in the beginning of this episode. Most of the scenes in this episode were actually written and filmed for the 8th episode. So think about that. We get 9. This was the 8th episode that we were supposed to get most of this origin She-Hulk story. However, the first episode was intended to present Jennifer Walters as already being She-Hulk, with the flashback scenes of her accident and, subsequent training with Hulk being the basis of the penultimate episode, which usually means episode before the end. However, these scenes were reconstructed into the first episode during post-production in order to give the audience the origin of She-Hulk from the beginning. And I like how they address this, Kyle. Like, look, okay, I'm She-Hulk, and I know that you're not just going to take it for what it is, so let me get you caught up. I thought that was a very smart thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was the way to go. And again, it establishes that fourth wall breaking right out of the get-go.
Yeah. I thought this was great. Let's just get this out of the way. Let's do it. So anyway, that's what I got for trivia, man.
Okay, well, I got a little bit of built-up Tesseract energy, so let me burn a little of that off.
Got a little bit of Tesseract energy that you need to burn off. I like that. That was good.
So let's shift on over into phase 3, Kevin, and let's do a little bit of the plot analysis here, because I think we talked about it some with our first reactions here, but you had a few things that stood out for you two as far as ties to the MCU.
Okay, so Sakaar, I forgot who the Sakaar was. I had to dive into that a little bit, and there was a Sakaarian Class A courier craft, as Bruce Banner / Smart Hulk references it. And you had mentioned that we're going to get ties possibly to a Hulk War, maybe TV series, or a Hulk TV series or something like that. So the question is, when do you think we'll get that, Kyle? And you got any more insight on that?
I don't have a lot of insight, but if you've been following a lot of the Marvel Universe Twitters, especially the people who follow it on a regular basis, World War Hulk has been being talked about now for a while, and especially as Ruffalo they're wanting to capitalize on having Ruffalo and Hemsworth as part of the original Avengers still be such a big part of this, and it makes sense to do this, and we still have a lot of slots open in that phase 6 for the MCU, and that would make sense that would fall in somewhere within that, and there's a lot of storylines aspects they can pull from Sakaar, even though they did Planet Hulk a little differently, and how they would do World War Hulk would be a little different, but there's some key elements they can pull from this, including the Hulk's son, who he had a child with in the comics on Sakaar.
Who was the mother?
Child. It was a character that passed away. She was just one of the warriors that was part of the games. We didn't see her in Thor Ragnarok, obviously, but they could definitely pull from that. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see with that. But there's definitely more to the Sakaarian class cruiser showing up.
Are you telling me that it was Bruce that had sex or the Hulk that had sex?
It was the Hulk.
Okay. I got some stuff I'm going to bring up in this season for sure. Okay. Okay. So I had kind of a couple of funny things, and then we're going to get into the main topic and stuff like that the topic that you want to discuss here. But so we get reference to someone named Ched, Kyle, in the car, referencing the other genius in the family, Ched. And I'm like, okay, I got to ask Kyle about Ched, because is this some character that was just kind of came in for a little bit in the comics and blah, blah, blah. And someone on Marvel Cinematic Universe Fandom.com wiki already made a page for Ched. And all it says is the quote, "You're not the only genius in the family." she says. And then he says, no, there's also Ched. That's Jennifer Walters and, of course, Bruce Banner. And all it says, Ched is a relative, Bruce Banner and Jennifer Walters. Kyle, apparently you found some information on this.
Yeah, apparently only Jessica Gao at the time knew who Ched was because she created Ched. Jessica Gao, of course, the head writer of She-Hulk. This is an aspect of where, again, we're going to see the MCU do its own thing a little bit here because they're going to dive a little bit more into the family of Jennifer and Bruce. And we're going to see some characters that we've not really had much to flesh out. The only thing we've really known about the Hulk's history is that he had Bruce Banner had a very abusive father. And a lot of people tie that into the aspect of why he has this other persona, this Hulk persona, because it was a persona that he made as a child to protect himself from the abuse of his father.
I'm glad you mentioned that because the point that Hulk says to her while she's training with him about how if you're now the superhuman superhero, it puts a target on your back and to the ones you care about. So I'm curious that that's going to come in or if that's just going to be a throwaway line, but let's hear it for Ched. Let's just hope that a super programmed woman doesn't turn Ched into a big, huge thing of excrement.
See, the only thing I'm going to say about this is that, well, I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt, see what happens. I'm wondering if Jessica Gao was familiar with the Hulk character Amadeus Cho, because Amadeus Cho was one of this many Hulk sidekicks, but he was a genius himself. He was probably smarter than Bruce Banner. A lot of people considered him the smartest character in the MCU. So I'm wondering if she's playing on that at all. So I'm Ched Cho, I'm just playing on that a little bit.
Kyle, I got nothing from you from my weird science reference. Nothing.
I was thinking about Tatiana. Can you blame me?
Okay. Okay. I don't know why this makes me laugh more than it probably does for most people. Kyle, what's one of the things I like to say?
You have a thing with farts?
Farts are funny. I don't care what you think. Farts are funny. And I think we got our first reference to farts in the MCU when there's that very funny moment where Smart Hulk is talking about this dialectical behavior therapy. And Jennifer was saying, wow, I never thought you'd be so into the mind, body, and spirit. And he's saying, no, this is evidence-based, not, psychotherapy. It's clinical, not spiritual. And she goes, let your thought drift away. Relax your neck, bend your knees. If that's comfortable, hold in your farts. Namaste all day.
And it's how she delivers it too. How she delivers that line is so.
And I liked how. Oh, and I thought this was about getting my butt tight up hell, up top. Anyway, like the fact that MCU has officially recognized farts because they're funny. Thank you. I am done.
Well, there's a topic I want to talk about too, as far as ties to the comics, and I want to talk about how Marvel is just kind of not going with the actual origin story of She-Hulk, and they're kind of skipping a whole aspect of it here. And I think,
are you fine? Hold on, that's a big thing you just said. Are you fine with that?
I am absolutely fine with this because of how Marvel has.
Okay, hold on. Explain to me why you're fine with that, but why other people may not be.
Okay, so when Marvel first introduced the She-Hulk, she was the Savage She-Hulk. So she was very much like the Hulk, rage. But fairly early on, when John Byrne took over and made the classic run of She-Hulk, he basically Jennifer Walters stayed as She-Hulk all the time. She hated being Jennifer Walters. And so you had this confident She-Hulk that's the kind of the version we're getting there. But the only difference being is that she's kind of transforming more back to her Jennifer Walters self. I think that's obviously kind of like, the mask thing. They don't want to wear a mask all the time and to the cost of the CGI for doing She-Hulk as well. But the fact that they're really skipping over the Savage She-Hulk part of this, I think is a good thing because it lets us get to the true essence of what is the most popular thing about She-Hulk, which is her personality. That's the thing that's always attracted people to She-Hulk is her confidence, how she carries herself. and the one dynamic that I noticed they've changed again too is that there was a very big difference between personalities between She-Hulk and Jennifer Walters. Jennifer Walters was kind of, I don't want to say meek, but she was kind of introverted, not really out there, while She-Hulk is just out there bang. But now they've kind of seemed like Jennifer Walters herself in human form is a little bit more out there and confident. It still feels like what they've done is they've taken She-Hulk and just taken that and up that level even further. And even as She-Hulk, she's even more confident and more not afraid to put herself out there. So, but I think it was the right move, because I don't really think Savage She-Hulk would have sold for like a couple of episodes while she went through this and got into more of the set She-Hulk persona. The fact you're going right to that right from the get-go, I think it's the right call, storyline wise and character wise, because it lets us identify with the character right away. And we've also experienced it before with Hulk. So now I wouldn't be surprised to see an episode where maybe she goes Savage during this run. I think they could pull a pretty interesting storyline out of that. But I think it was the right call in what they did here, because we really are getting the most familiar version of She-Hulk right out of the gate.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
So that's kind of my point on that.
Okay, so you alluded to it earlier that you wanted to talk about it, if I remember correctly, and I want to make sure stuff that you've alluded to earlier that we discuss here. And one of them was regarding her being a lawyer and the stuff we've seen so far. Your thoughts on how this is going to be a comedy lawyer show? They keep kind of throwing Ally McBeal out there, LA Law, what have you. That this is going to give us an interesting look into a superhero dealing with normal life stuff in an extraordinary way, because you are going to be dealing with the American law. Because we saw that funny little scene that's coming up with Wong, the book of the law, and how superheroes are going to have to be, maybe more street level ones, what have you, going to have to be accountable for stuff that we're not used to seeing. And we're going to see kind of more of a natural, down-to-earth setting of a superhero. Your thoughts?
I think this is what the show's going to be. It's going to be the conflict between trying to live a normal life while still being what, as Bruce was trying to explain to Jennifer, that I don't think Jennifer, even in this episode, fully understood yet, is, guess what? You have these powers. It kind of makes you a magnet for this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I think Jennifer just thinks, I can live my life, be fine with this. And I think that's going to be one of the things for this series that they're going to play on, is the fact that she can't be She-Hulk and have a normal life.
Yep.
And I think that's, even when we've seen in the trailers where the place that's hiring her to be an attorney, they want her to be the head of their superhero division because she is a superhero.
Right. And she's got this legal background that is probably very, very valuable.
Yeah, exactly. So I really think in here too, they're going to play up the comedy side of She-Hulk, and this is coming back again from the classic John Byrne sensational She-Hulk run, where she breaks the fourth wall. One of the things about She-Hulk, and I think they're going to play this up a little bit too, is She-Hulk can be a little oversexed at times, and I think they've explained it as, it's a side effect.
Explain what you mean by that.
Let's just say She-Hulk.
Do you mean she has a very strong sexual drive? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yes.
Okay.
So, in the MCU, it's led to some very interesting moments in comic books in the Marvel comics, where she's maybe hooked up with some people she probably shouldn't have hooked up with. But I'm curious to see how they're going to play that up. And they did kind of play this up in a couple of in what I think it was the second trailer that came out, where she's trying to date. And, they're like, she takes one guy back to her apartment and she's carrying the guy. And
that brings up a question that I would like to ask you, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
For us that haven't read the comics, who in the comics has she had a relationship with?
That's all. Do we have it in a couple hours?
Okay.
No.
Let me ask you. Okay. I'm assuming there's been some superhero involvement with her, but has she ever dated just a normal person and had a extensive relationship with someone? Because the reason why I ask is, are we going to see that in this series?
The only one that I can like a normal human that I consider would be significant. There's a character by the name of Wyatt Wingfoot who was hanging out. He would hang out with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. He was a normal human, but he had some attributes to him that he was a very intelligent, top physical condition for a normal human being. But he had a bit of a thing with Jennifer Walters for a while when she was part of the Fantastic Four. They were in a relationship for a while. Jennifer Walters has also had a thing with Thor. She had a little fling with the Juggernaut, who's an X-Men villain. There's been a few others, but as far they really with her, she's been on kind of dates, but she talks about in the comics, even one of the aspects of is that people are intimidated to approach her because of who she is.
Right.
So I'm going to be curious to see if they play that up in this series at all. Like,
I would really like to see that. I would like to see her have a relationship with a non-superhero, because then he could be a target for someone who wants to try to hurt her. But also, I would love it that someone that, as you said, yes, guys might be intimidated by her, but it would be nice if there was someone that could not be. Maybe it was a tall guy too. I don't know. Be interesting if it was a short guy too. That might be kind of funny. But I want someone strong that could play off her and like be able to, know that, hey, this woman's different and I'm fine with this.
Yeah. No, I think it's got. I think there's some interesting possibilities and I think they have plans to go in several directions with this series. I don't think this is going to be a one note all about the law, her in court. I really think they're going to explore her adjusting to being She-Hulk and how it affects the relationships around her. And I really do think it's going to be interesting.
I just want to say the way that I've seen her look in the trailer for stuff we haven't seen in the series thus far, looking pretty. Looking pretty hot. Mm-hmm. Just saying.
Yeah. She'd probably break every bone in either one of our bodies, but I think it might be worth it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And she's smart too. You can have an intelligent conversation with her. Just don't make her too angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that, guys, we are going to... Kevin, do you have any final thoughts?
I just want to say this was a pleasant surprise. It's something that I was looking forward to, and I am looking forward to the rest of this series, and I'm excited. And I'm just ready for some fun, and this is what I needed, and this is what I want.
Tatiana.
I'm sorry, Tatiana.
No, you have your movie wife and TV wife. Stay off my turf, man. No, this has been the first episode was a lot of fun. I think this series is going to be a lot of fun. I think you take it in as what it's meant to be, and it's meant to be kind of an action sitcom. And I think that's what Marvel intended. And I think they've got a great cast. Tatiana Maslany, I think, is going to be around in the MCU for a while. Even Mark Ruffalo has been already dropping hints. Kevin, Mark Ruffalo might spoil more than Tom Holland.
I don't know about that. I see where you're going with it, but man, I freaking love Mark Ruffalo. And you know what's also cool about Mark Ruffalo is that I'm sure he has not forgotten how to dance the Thriller dance.
Absolutely not.
And if you know Mark Ruffalo's past movies, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. I believe I do know what you're talking about. Are you going on 30, Kevin?
Yes. 13 going on 30 with Jennifer Garner. Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah. He was charming in that. I love him. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm very excited to see where this is going to go. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and something very different from Marvel. And again, I give them kudos with Disney Plus and their shows taking different approaches, having different coming from so many different angles with this, and they're continuing to do this. Whether you've liked everything or if you felt like it's too much, I give them credit because you know what, they're trying new things instead of just sticking to what is tried and true. They're being bold. They're taking chances. I love it, and I'm all in for this ride on She-Hulk. I'm all in the ride for Tatiana. But
I'm sorry. Who, Kyle?
Tatiana.
Kyle's crushing on Tat.
And I think most people would say, we don't blame you. Just get in line behind me, fellas. That's all I'm saying.
She's a very charming girl. I'll say that for sure.
She's got the girl next door thing going on for sure. But let's launch a little Tesseract energy and tell you where else you can find the Fandom Podcast Network. So, of course, you're either listening to True Believers on the master feed of the Fandom Podcast Network at fpnet.podbean.com, or maybe you're watching this video, very green video, by the way, on our wonderful YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, please give us a like, give us a share, get subscribed, tell your friends. We just love sharing our content with you and sharing our thoughts. We love our listeners, we love our fans, and you guys make it worthwhile for us doing. Kevin, you look contemplative.
Yeah, I was just thinking. Quick, fun question. Who are your favorite green characters of all time? I got to go, obviously, with Kermit the Frog, the Turtles, and now the Hulks. Who else is out there?
Gamora?
Ah, there you go, Gamora. Miria from Robotech had nice green hair.
Yeah.
Not a green person, though.
Of course, we know how Kirk likes the green ladies.
This is true. The Orions, right? Yeah.
That's a good... Could Kirk tame the Savage She-Hulk?
Oh God, no! She'll, yeah, no, she could break Kirk, and not only that, but knock some ego off him as well.
Yeah,
but wait a minute, he might enjoy that actually.
Do we dare carry this conversation over to Union Federation?
Here I am
and find out.
Around, what's funny is I'm looking around my studio with all my toys, going, "Do I have any other green characters hanging around here?" I probably do. So anyway, I'd throw that action out there. What are the green characters are you fans of? As
beautiful as She-Hulk might be, Grogu still wins the cutest green character.
Grogu, yeah.
And that's what happens when you randomly, by accident, hit a button on your keyboard. Tesseract Energies comes from anywhere.
No, you were just transitioning out of Kevin's, illegal trajectory.
Saving him from himself, ladies and gentlemen. But
yeah, pretty much.
Of course, like I said, please give us a like, a subscribe, and a share on our YouTube channel. You can find the master feed for the Fandom Podcast Network audio podcast at fpnet.podbean.com. Of course, you can also find us on all those amazing podcast catchers out there, whether it's iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and so many others. Of course, too, you can find us on Facebook, Fandom Podcast Network, or of course, like we said at the top of the show, our amazing True Believers Facebook group as well. Please join it. We keep you updated on all the goings on in the MCU, and it's about to have another tidal wave come through, even though we're still trying to dig out from the last tsunami of Marvel information. It's a lot. Of course, you can find us too on Instagram, Fandom Podcast Network, or follow us on Twitter at FanPod Network. Of course, you can find me, Kyle, future husband of Tatiana Maslany, on Twitter at AKyleW, or on Instagram at AKyleFandom. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. And just a shout out, we got a new episode of Time Warp 1982 Part 3, discussing the early summer movie releases in May and June, which also include Conan and E.T. and, of course, Blade Runner. Make sure you check that out. That's dropping soon. And also we've got a season 3 wrap up of Union Federation discussing the Orville's last season. So we're going to be just doing that soon.
And just a reminder, when you're done watching She-Hulk on Disney Plus, go watch the Orville on Disney Plus. #renew the Orville.
Yes, keep streaming them on Disney Plus, guys. We need those numbers up. Anything can help.
So with that, guys, as we get ready to close out here too, I just want to say thank you for listening. It's going to be a fun ride for She-Hulk. By this time, the next episode, I'm sure there will be a restraining order against me from Tatiana Maslany. But as always, as we say around here, true believers.
Oh, wait, hold on. Can I give the fast She-Hulk clap?
My ears.
I meant to bring that up earlier and I forgot.
A little sonic boom action there, but as my ears are ringing, as always, Excelsior to all you wonderful people out there, and until next time, make ours Marvel.